Welcome back to Car Snubs. I'm actually filming this on Christmas Day, and I think I might have made the naughty list because this is not even close to a good car. It's the 2021 Hyundai Elantra. It was recently restyled. It's got a bunch of tech in it. I'm gonna take you through the car and some of the weird things that I've found along the way. Under the hood is a 2-liter dual overhead cam, 4-cylinder engine, dubbed the Smart Stream. Every manufacturer has to have their brand of marketing on their engines now. This is an engine that Hyundai's been using for a very long time. Some of these have had issues, at least the turbocharged ones. They overheat and they get oil sludge. This one is not turbocharged. It'll go 0 to 60 in 8.1 seconds, so it's not the fastest thing in the world, but it'll get the job done. But speaking of oil sludge, I wonder if there's some kind of oil leak here. You can see it's clean around where the oil filler is, but it's a rental car, so I don't care. About the only thing I don't mind on this car is the exterior styling, especially in this electric blue color. I think it looks pretty good. Now, this particular one has a little bit extra dents and scratches. You can see kind of the demographic that usually rents these cars. They just don't really take care of them, but it's got the Hyundai new grille that they use. A lot of their cars have the integrated headlights into that grille and giant Hyundai badges now, which they used to be a lot smaller because I think it was pretty embarrassing to drive a Hyundai, and now they've stepped up their game quite a bit since. One thing I will give them props for too is no hubcaps on this, which is nice. Sometimes still in these entry-level cars, they put hubcaps on them, but you get actual rims here. And a theme you will see throughout the car, cost cutting 101 with hard plastic. The C-pillar, they didn't put glass in there. They just decided to put a piece of plastic. Onto the back, tail lights. And interesting enough, almost all cars now have LED headlights and tail lights. This one still uses halogens. But overall, pretty bold styling choice for this type of car. I like it. Out back, there is no way to open the trunk, no keyhole, no button or anything, but you can do it from the fob if you do this. Or you also have a trunk release inside the car as well. Pretty decent sized trunk in here. The side hinges are not too intrusive, and you do have a spare tire underneath. One thing I don't like is the seats do fold down. You got 2 grab bars here. You pull that and you pull that. And most cars have a 60-40 back seat that will split, so you can have an additional person in the back. But this one is all one. So if you're hauling big stuff where you need to put the seat down, you're limited to only 2 people in the car. Rear seat room is really good. Back in the day, compact cars used to actually be compact, but you can fit really well in these small entry-level cars now. I'm 6'3", and I have plenty of room here. Well, maybe not headroom when you get in, but once you are in, the headroom is nice. Legroom's pretty good. I got a few inches here. This seat is adjusted for myself to drive it, so it is pretty far back, but I still got a few extra inches. Now, there is no armrest in the middle, which most cars have, so you're just kind of on your own in the back here. But you do get a cup holder and a little grab bar. That's about it. Jumping to the interior, let's check out the door panel. Plastic, 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 plastic. Common theme in this car. You got all your normal goodies. You got windows, doors, mirrors on the side here. You got a dimmer switch for the dashboard. Auto starts off on and off. Now this one's really important because as much as I hate auto start stop, this one is particularly horrible. Let's say you're at a red light, it'll cut off the engine and then maybe 2 seconds later turn back on when you haven't even moved your foot off the brake or the gas, and it just doesn't make any sense. I don't see how it's saving any gas when it just cuts off for 2 or maybe 3 seconds at the most. Lane departure assistance, this does have a lot of the good safety tech in it, and traction control. The overall cockpit feel, the steering wheel is really hard plastic as well. So you can get a leather wrapped option, but it does not come in the base model. Up top, more hard materials. You got this fake aluminum that runs along the dash, and the cockpit is very focused on the driver and facing at the driver, which is good if you're driving the car alone. But if you have a passenger, I think they can feel isolated. You kind of got this barrier here where it's like maybe you're an Uber driver and you don't talk to the person next to you. But if you're sitting next to someone you actually talk to, it's a little odd because you feel like you got a barrier in between you. And the seats are very, very hard. They're not the most comfortable seats, but the stitching is nice and it doesn't look too bad. In the middle, you got your cup holders, old school parking brake, no electronic parking brake on this one. It actually still has an actual shifter, which is rare to find these days too. And you got your center compartment, and sunglasses are in here because up top, they didn't put a sunglass holder. I haven't seen a car without a sunglass holder in a long time, but hey, it's not a huge deal. You got a mirror, hello, and no light though, but you do have a couple lights on the top, and each one is individually controlled as well. Let's go through some of the tech in this car. It actually still does have a key, which is annoying if you're like me and have to get out of your car multiple times a day and reach for the keys. Put that in, start the car up. You get an actual tachometer, speedometer. Inside there is your fuel gauge, and inside the tach, if you can see that, is your temperature gauge. It is digital inside there. And on the side here, you get a little screen with a lot of driver assistance settings. See if I can figure this out. The volume, I would turn this all the way down and it's still very loud because this car beeps incessantly, like all the time. It's just beeping at random things. Driver attention, you got inattentive driver warning. Everything you would expect in the cars today. Forward safety. This is not adjustable, unfortunately. It's super sensitive, which I'll show you on a drive. It's going off all the time. It pauses the stereo, and it's super annoying. You could turn it off, I guess, if you want, but it is nice to have if an actual emergency occurs, but it freaks out like there's an emergency all the time when there's really not. You got lane safety, lane keep assist. The lane keep assist is really aggressive. It feels like it's trying to drive for you. It's a little bit scary. Most systems are very subtle. This one is aggressive in the way that it adjusts the wheel. But there's a lot of settings for all that stuff. Parking safety. It does have the rear cross traffic alert, which is handy and surprising that you would find it on this level of car. Let me show you that quick. Put this into reverse. You got your camera here. Now, let's say there were cars coming on either side. You would get a little warning and it'll beep at you which direction the car is coming from. It's actually been really nice. I've had it happen a couple times now where it goes off and you might not have seen those cars coming. But other than that, just your standard backup camera. There are no rear sensors on this, just the camera itself. And if you ever want to access that camera while you're even just driving, you can press this little button and you'll get the camera at any time. You can turn it off and on all the time. Now the buttons are a little bit slow, I've noticed. Turn this back on here. Go to your media. I don't have my phone connected right now because it would disconnect the video, but it does have Apple CarPlay. The button action on the screen is just, it's a little bit slow. It's not bad on here, but if you're doing it from the steering wheel, let's go to a radio station and switch it. I'm gonna hit this, so I'm gonna hit it now. Hit it now. Hit it now. It's just a little bit slow, especially if you're using like Spotify and skipping songs, things like that. It's a little annoying. You wonder, like, did it actually happen? And you'll hit it again and maybe skip it twice. But it's not a bad little setup. This is the smaller screen. There's a 10-inch screen. I believe it goes across this whole width here. That is probably a little bit nicer, but not available on the standard Elantra. One weird thing I noticed, this is the track skip button. And In my head, I would think if you want to skip to the next strap, you would skip up. But this one's down. So up goes backwards and down goes forward. It's a little strange, but I'm sure you would get used to it. One other odd thing about this car is it whirs when it steers. Listen. It's like a cat. You know what time it is. Give me a horn score. When you're driving this car on the corners, it has an amazing amount of body roll. And just watch how much the suspension sways when I'm just sitting in it at a standstill. It's incredible. I can only imagine how much this car moves if you get 2, 3, even 4 bigger people in this car. It's gotta look like quite the scene. Something to be on the lookout for here if you have a steep driveway like I do. It says that the car has a 6-inch ground clearance, which is about normal. Most of these sedans like this are about 5 to 6 inches. But I don't know. I think it's a little bit lower. I've never had a car scrape like this. So, a little bit of a scrape there. Not too bad. But here's where the problem comes in. Listen in. Wait for it. Ooh, yikes. Some quality engineering on this car too. So I was just getting in and I brushed my shoulder on the edge here and look what happened. The entire piece of trim flew off. You can't make this up. And check out the panel fitment on the car. There are some giant gaps in here. I mean, I could pull the whole hood up. Get my finger in there. Pretty big gaps here. This one's the worst. Look at the trunk. Even down here, I can get my whole hand in underneath the trunk. Pretty crazy. Here too. I want to give you a peek at this auto high beam system because it seems to have a mind of its own. Check out the top right. It is now activated. This road's pretty dark, so it should be kicking on the high beams. Let's see what happens. These are low beams right now. There's a car over there, so I'll give it that. Still in low beam. So there's no reason that we should be in low beams right now. It should be kicking into high beam. There it is. Okay. High beams are on right now. Let's see how long they last because I'm skeptical. It's been acting very strange for me. There's a car right there and it just keeps the high beams on. Oh, there it turned off. But by the time that happened, you already blinded someone. So that's kind of useless. High beams are now back on and off. High beams on. And for no reason, we'll just turn the high beams off. High beams on. And high beams off. It makes no sense what this car is thinking. I don't know if it's getting distracted by the Christmas lights. There's the high beams on. But it is definitely the worst one I've ever driven. And high beams off. But there is a car coming, so maybe it worked that time. Let's get past this car and see what happens one more time. Still no high beam. Oh, there it is. High beam. And high beam off. It's a good time. I just threw this thing into sport mode. It is a holiday. I'm about to get on the Pacific Coast Highway, so traffic should be good. Let's see what this baby can do. Lots of body roll, but It's got a little bit of pep. I don't know that the sport mode makes that much of a difference. And you're definitely limited once you get mid-range. If you can see that the steering wheel likes to do its own thing with that smart, supposedly smart controls. And there's the annoying forward collision that goes off for no reason, even when you're going like 5 miles an hour. Interestingly enough, Car and Driver actually picked this car as their editor's choice when this redesign came in, which tells me these automotive journalists are just full of BS, and they're getting paid by the auto manufacturers to say good things, because in a world where the Toyota Corolla and the Honda Civic exist, there's no way in hell you're gonna recommend this over one of those cars. Now, maybe you're thinking price. It starts at $21,000 for a Hyundai Elantra. Well, a Toyota Corolla starts at $21,450, and I love that car. I'm not a hater on these compact cars. Toyota Corolla is a great car. I haven't driven the new Civic yet, but I know the previous generation, the 2017 to 2022, also another great car, and a world of increase in interior quality. But the new Civic does start at $24,000, so you do have to spend a little bit more. It does have a lot of the tech features, and I'm sure that's their selling point when they're trying to push this car. But the problem is, if those tech features don't work right, then what's the point? Yeah, your car has this or that, but if it acts weird and doesn't function, like the auto high beam, or this driver assist that pretty much grabs the steering wheel away from you, or the forward collision that goes off for no reason, even if you're going 3 miles an hour, I don't want that tech. The whole purpose of having that is to make your experience more enjoyable, and if it makes your driving experience horrible, then I don't want it. I don't know. This car also just has this feeling to me that it's like unstable. I haven't had a car of the modern era feel like that since I drove a Mitsubishi Mirage. Now those are tiny, tiny cars, and they're like $15,000. So that I would kind of expect it. This car just feels wild. Like I feel like I could get in an accident. I don't know. The selling point has to be safety on these things too, but to me, this car just does not feel safe. It's interesting. I like the bold design for this type of car, but that's about it. Go get yourself a Corolla if you're just looking to save money and have a good, reliable car. And I don't know how reliable this thing would be. If you're gonna have a car and you're gonna keep it for 5 years, drive it 100,000 miles, get the Toyota every single time. Skip this car. Some of the higher end Hyundais and even their Genesis line are really good cars, but this one is just cost cutting everywhere. I can see it all over the place. This shares platforms with multiple other cars. This is a cheap car to build, a cheap car to sell, and they were probably getting a nice little markup during COVID on these. If you put a markup on a Hyundai Elantra, you get what you deserve. Well, that's it. I hope I was able to steer you clear of a Hyundai Elantra, or if you already made the mistake of getting one and you're realizing that now, let me know in the comments below. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Car Snubs on YouTube. If you got a car you want me to drive and you're in the Southern California area, you can contact me down below as well. I'll see you next time with hopefully a better car.